heat. They were ready for it. He's going to bring a little water to it.
Way to win a few more people on your side, as if he needs it.
Alcaraz stops everything. The heart-stopping moment. Carlos ignored the rules to save a fainting ball girl. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, your absolute premium destination for the spiciest, most jaw-dropping, and totally unscripted moments that happen both on and off the tennis court. If you thought you had seen everything this season, if you thought the limits of drama had already been pushed to their absolute breaking point by 5-set thrillers and smashed rackets, I need you to sit down, take a very deep breath, and turn your volume all the way up. Because what we are about to dive into today isn't just another highlight reel of a monstrous cross-court forehand or an impossible drop shot that leaves the crowd gasping. No, today we are talking about a moment that completely transcends the sport.
They were ready for it. He's going to bring a little water to it.
Way to win a few more people on your side, as if he needs it.
Itself. A moment that forced an entire high-stakes tournament to screech to a terrifying, breathless halt. A moment where the racket hit the clay, the scoreboard was forgotten, and the raw, unfiltered humanity of one of the greatest young superstars in the history of tennis was put on full, blazing display for the entire world to see. We are, of course, talking about Carlos Alcaraz, the Spanish sensation, the reigning career Grand Slam champion, and the man who just proved beyond any shadow of a doubt that some things in this life are infinitely more important than winning a tennis match.
Llego a casa soy el Carlos de siempre, no el tenista o el número uno.
So let's set the stage properly, because the context here is everything. The atmosphere inside the arena was electric, practically suffocating with the kind of white-knuckle tension that you can only find in the deepest, most grueling stages of a major tennis tournament. The quarterfinal match had just reached its brutal, exhausting conclusion. For hours upon hours, the crowd had been riding a chaotic, emotional roller coaster, screaming at every break point, gasping at every extended baseline rally, and absolutely marveling at the kind of athletic freakishness that Carlos Alcaraz brings to the court every single time he laces up his shoes and steps over that baseline. The final ball had been struck. The match was officially over, and the protocol for a moment like this is practically etched in granite. The winner roars, pumps his fist toward the sky, jogs to the net for a handshake, maybe signs the camera lens for the broadcast team, waves to his adoring fans in the stands, and soaks in every last drop of that sweet, hard-earned victory. But fate, as we all know, has a very funny and occasionally terrifying way of completely tearing up the script. Right at the very edge of the court, almost invisible amidst the roaring applause and the chaotic swirl of post-match celebration, a young ball girl was quietly fighting a battle of her own. And let's be brutally honest for a moment here, because these kids deserve it. Ball kids are the absolute unsung heroes of professional tennis. They stand like statues in blistering, punishing heat for hours on end, sprinting back and forth at a moment's notice, tossing towels with precision, and essentially ensuring that the entire multi-million-dollar spectacle runs like a perfectly oiled machine while remaining completely invisible to the broadcast cameras. They are trained to be ghosts. They are expected to blend into the background no matter what their body is telling them. But the human body has its limits, and on this particular day, on this particular court, those limits were catastrophically breached. Out of absolutely nowhere, the young girl wobbled. Her knees buckled underneath her, and she collapsed in a dead faint right there at the perimeter of the clay, crumpling to the ground like a rag doll while the stadium chaos swirled all around her. Now here is where the story goes from dramatic to genuinely extraordinary. In the hyper-focused, rigidly protocol-driven bubble of professional tennis, there is a very clear chain of command for emergencies. You wait for the chair umpire to assess the situation. You wait for the medical staff to be called down from their designated positions. You hold your position. You do not intervene. That is the unwritten rule, and it is followed almost universally because the machinery of professional sport is designed that way. But Carlos Alcaraz looked at that unwritten rule, calculated it against what his eyes were telling him in real time, and then threw it clean out of the stadium. Without hesitating for even a fraction of a second, the Spanish phenom snapped his head toward the commotion. His eyes went wide with genuine, unfiltered alarm. He didn't glance up at the umpire's chair for clearance. He didn't wait for tournament officials in their neatly pressed blazers to make their way down from the sidelines. He dropped absolutely everything and sprinted toward the edge of the court with the same explosive urgency he uses to chase down impossible passing shots, running directly, immediately, instinctively to her aid. In that single, stunning moment, he was not the world's most exciting tennis player. He was not a career Grand Slam champion with the weight of an entire nation's expectations on his shoulders. He was not a global superstar with sponsorship deals and press obligations and brand management to worry about. He was just a deeply concerned young man acting on pure, unfiltered gut instinct, because a vulnerable person needed help and he was the closest one there. The racket he had been wielding like a weapon for the past several hours? Left on the court. The scoreline? Irrelevant. The cameras broadcasting his every micro-expression to millions of households around the world? Completely ignored. He knelt beside the young girl, frantically waved down the medical team with a barely contained urgency that sent visible shivers through the crowd, and used his own match towel to fan her face while the slow-moving apparatus of the official medical response finally, mercifully, kicked into gear. The reaction inside the stadium was something ripped straight out of a cinematic masterpiece. That roaring wall of post-match noise that had been shaking the stands just moments before? Gone. Instantly replaced by a breathless, wide-eyed, collective silence that pressed down on the entire arena like a physical weight. Carlos refused to leave the vicinity. He paced. He checked. He gestured urgently to officials, making absolutely sure that everyone who needed to be responding was responding. His own post-match exhaustion, the kind of full-body fatigue that comes from performing at the absolute pinnacle of human athletic achievement for several hours straight, was completely forgotten. Then came the announcement. The umpire's voice crackled over the public address system, cutting through the silence like a knife. And when the confirmation came that the young girl had regained consciousness, was stable, and was being carefully escorted for precautionary medical checks, the stadium did not just cheer. It erupted. It absolutely detonated with raw, overwhelmingly emotional energy. People were on their feet. Some were crying. Many were chanting his name. But they weren't chanting it the way they chant it after a stunning backhand winner down the line. They were chanting it the way you chant the name of someone who reminded you what really matters. Carlos Alcaraz, not just a conqueror of Grand Slams, but in that moment, something far more meaningful and far more permanent. Now here is where we add some important, eye-opening context. Because if you have been closely following the incredible arc of Carlos Alcaraz's career and his character off the court, this breathtaking display of empathy and immediate action shouldn't come as a complete shock to you. This is a guy who has consistently, repeatedly, and almost stubbornly refused to let superstardom hollow him out. He has maintained this extraordinary quality where he is simultaneously the most ferociously competitive player on the planet and the most genuinely warm human being in the locker room. Cast your mind back to Wimbledon 2025, when he was locked in a grinding, brutal 5-set war on center court, and a spectator in the stands suffered a medical emergency. While players, officials, and fans were all looking around trying to figure out the appropriate response, Alcaraz was already grabbing a water bottle from his own courtside cooler and gesturing urgently toward the distressed fan. He operates on a frequency that other people simply aren't tuned into. He is watching the ball, reading his opponent's body language, managing his own physical and mental state, and simultaneously remaining aware of every single human being in his orbit. That is not training. That is character. And the timing of this incident makes it even more staggering when you zoom out and look at where Carlos Alcaraz stands in the grand landscape of tennis history right now. We are talking about the man who, earlier this year at the 2026 Australian Open in Melbourne, achieved something that most tennis legends never achieve across their entire decorated careers. He won the Australian Open title, and in doing so became the youngest male player in the documented history of professional tennis to complete the career Grand Slam. 22 years old. For different Grand Slam surfaces conquered. Every major trophy on earth in his possession. He has the sporting world locked in the palm of his hand, global adoration pouring in from every corner of the planet, and a legacy already secured that most athletes would trade their entire careers for. It would be astonishingly easy, and perhaps even somewhat understandable for a person in that position to become untouchable in their own mind, to start floating above the reality of the people around them, to let the bubble of elite sport insulate them from basic human connection. And yet here he is, in Monte Carlo this April, grinding through the clay court season in the thick of one of the most intensely watched rivalries in modern sport. And he still has the instinct and the character to stop the show for a ball kid. Speaking of that clay court season, let's talk about the battlefield Carlos is currently operating on, because the context of his competitive life right now only amplifies how extraordinary this act of humanity truly was. The Monte Carlo Masters is not a casual warm-up event. It is one of the most prestigious clay court tournaments on the entire ATP calendar, set against the impossibly glamorous backdrop of the French Riviera, and it sits right at the heart of the run-up toward Roland Garros. Every point earned or dropped in Monte Carlo carries enormous weight in the psychological battle between the sport's two dominant forces. Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are currently in the middle of a rivalry so consuming, so relentlessly compelling, that it has completely reignited global interest in professional tennis in a way that hasn't been seen since the Federer-Nadal era had the entire sporting world in a chokehold. Sinner, the current world number one, is a ruthlessly efficient, ice-blooded operator. He processes the game like a supercomputer. He does not blink, he does not waver, and he does not give you an inch without making you bleed for it. Alcaraz, on the other hand, brings volcanic emotion, supernatural shot making, and this almost reckless brilliance that makes watching him feel like witnessing someone simultaneously invent and play a sport in real time. These two men have been trading blows at the very top of the rankings for what feels like an eternity now, and their rivalry is nowhere near its peak. The 2026 season has already delivered multiple collisions between them that left fans completely wrung out and breathless. And yet, with all of that pressure, all of that rivalry, all of that expectation bearing down on him like a physical force, Alcaraz found the mental space in a post-match moment to prioritize a frightened young girl over every single other obligation. That tells you everything you will ever need to know about who Carlos Alcaraz is as a human being beneath the serve statistics and the trophy collection. This incident has also cracked open a conversation that the tennis world has been dancing around for far too long, and it is a conversation that needs to be had loudly and without diplomatic softening. The conditions that ball kids are expected to operate under during major professional tournaments are, in many documented cases, genuinely dangerous. These are young people, many of them teenagers, some of them even younger, who are required to stand virtually motionless in direct sunlight for extended periods. They are not permitted to sit. The reaction across social media in the hours and days following this incident has been absolutely volcanic in the best possible way. The clip of Alcaraz dropping his racket and sprinting toward the young girl went instantly viral across every platform simultaneously. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all of them flooded with the footage, with reaction videos, with fan edits set to emotional music, with commentators and former players weighing in. The overwhelming consensus has been thunderously in Alcaraz's corner. Former world number ones praised his instincts. Current players on the tour sent public messages of support and solidarity. Fans who had never watched a single tennis match in their lives suddenly found themselves invested in this young man's story because of a 20-second clip of him doing something genuinely, uncomplicatedly good. That is the kind of impact that transcends sport entirely. That reaches people in their living rooms, on their commutes, during their lunch breaks, and reminds them that the world still contains people who do the right thing without calculating whether it is the smart thing first. There were, predictably, a small number of voices in the tennis purist community who muttered about protocol and procedure and the sanctity of post-match routines. Those voices were absolutely drowned out within hours. The internet has many, many flaws, but on this particular occasion it reached a verdict with remarkable speed and remarkable unanimity. Carlos Alcaraz is a hero, and not in the diluted, overused, marketing department way that word gets thrown around in professional sport. In the actual, old-fashioned, someone needed help and ran toward them way. What makes this moment even more layered and emotionally rich is the broader narrative of what Carlos Alcaraz represents for the future of this sport. Tennis has spent decades cultivating a reputation as an elegant, somewhat aloof, tradition-bound world where the rules of etiquette are observed almost religiously and emotion is considered something to be managed rather than expressed. The new generation of players is methodically dismantling that image, and Alcaraz is right at the absolute forefront of that cultural shift. He brings Brazilian carnival energy to a sport that used to pride itself on restrained applause. He hugs ball kids after winning Grand Slams. He laughs out loud on court when he hits a shot so ridiculous that even he cannot quite believe it worked. He plays tennis the way a child who absolutely loves the game would play it if that child happened to also be blessed with superhuman athleticism and an iron competitive will. And now he has added a moment of genuine, spontaneous heroism to his increasingly extraordinary story. Looking ahead to the rest of this 2026 season, the stakes could not possibly be higher. Roland Garros is on the horizon, and the clay court surface is where Carlos Alcaraz has looked most invincible at certain points in his career. The battle with Sinner for the world #1 ranking is going to intensify with every tournament that passes. Every match between these two men will be dissected, debated, and replayed endlessly. The tactical chess match between them is going to keep tennis fans glued to their screens for months to come. But in all of that noise, in all of that competition and analysis and ranking mathematics, this moment from Monte Carlo is going to sit quietly in the back of everyone's mind. Because it is the moment that reminded us all why we actually care about these athletes in the first place. It is not the trophies. It is not the rankings. It is the moments when the sport strips everything away and you see who a person actually is underneath all of it. Carlos Alcaraz, at 22 years old, with a career Grand Slam already in his trophy cabinet and what appears to be a dynasty just beginning to flex its full power, looked at a vulnerable young person in distress and made a decision in less than a second that the entire world would spend days talking about. He reminded every single person watching that champions are not made solely in the crucible of 5-set finals and tiebreak drama. They are made in moments of unexpected, unprompted, uncelebrated decency. In moments when doing the right thing costs you something. Even if that something is just a few seconds of protocol and a bit of awkwardness with tournament officials. And he did it without hesitation, without calculation, and without a single thought about how it would look to the cameras that were recording every second of it. That is the real Carlos Alcaraz. That is your reigning career Grand Slam champion. That is the future face of tennis. And honestly, we could not be more here for every single second of it. Now the floor is absolutely yours, and I genuinely want to hear everything you have to say about this. What was your immediate gut reaction when you first saw the footage of Alcaraz dropping his racket and sprinting to help that young girl? Do you think it is finally time for the major tennis governing bodies to completely overhaul their ball kid welfare protocols and introduce real, enforceable protections against heat and exhaustion? And while we are at it, do you believe this rivalry between Alcaraz and Sinner has now fully, officially, undeniably reached the legendary status of Federer versus Nadal? The comments section is open and it is waiting for your hottest, most passionate takes right now. Do not hold back, because the Champions Tennisitics community always brings the fire. If this deep dive gave you chills, got your pulse racing, or simply reminded you why tennis is the most dramatic, most emotionally complex, most spectacularly human sport on the planet, then you know exactly what needs to happen next. Smash that like button with everything you have got. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss a single upload from Champions Tennisitics. And absolutely hammer that notification bell so you are the very first person to know when we drop our next massive story. We are just getting started this season, and trust us when we tell you, the best is very much yet to come. Keep your eyes on the court, keep your passion loud, and we will see you in the next one.
The heat, they were ready for it. He's going to bring a little water to
Way
it.
to win a few more people on your side, as if he needs it.
It's a great achievement. It was the goal to earn the GS #1, and after getting